What's up? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about two poker hands from a couple of students of mine. In case you are unaware, I do offer private one-on-one coaching. You can take a look at my website for more information, detroitpoker.net, or you can drop me an email, and there will be some information down in the video description below. Let's jump into the video right now. Okay, this first hand is with student. We're going to call this guy T, and T is under the gun, $300 stack, and gets dealt king queen of diamonds, and T bumps it up to $10, and he picks up 3 callers, and we're going to be second in line going to the flop 4 ways, and the flop comes out ace 5 3 with 2 diamonds and a spade. Pretty good flop for not having a pair. And the big blind checks the action over to T, and T places a bet for $15, and cutoff decides to raise and bumps it up to 60. And the action folds back around to T, and T makes the call, and they're going to take a turn, heads up, and turn comes out a 3 of clubs, and T checks the action over to the cutoff, and cutoff places another bet for $60 again, and T decides to make the fold. I'd definitely like to hear your thoughts about this hand. If you want to pause the video and think it through, if you have any comments how we could have played this hand differently, if you think it should have been played any differently, I'd like to hear them. And T would probably like to hear them as well. So now I'm going to give you my opinion on this hand. I definitely like the raise under the gun with king queen of diamonds here. Real time, I'd probably make a note to myself that $10 went 4 ways, and I'd probably raise a little bit larger the next time, maybe 12 or 15, just to try and get it heads up or 3-way max. And then when we go to this flop 4 ways, and the big blind checks and T places a bet for 15, I would definitely prefer a check here. I don't think this bet is ever getting through. The bet size is too small on top of that, and it might induce somebody to spaz raise us because the bet sizing is so small, and it's probably going to look pretty fishy to our opponents. And we have a lot of options with a check. We could check and call. We could check and raise if we think that we have some fold equity. We might be able to pick it up right there with a check raise. And if we do end up check raising, we can definitely have some initiative to move forward in the hand and barrel as played when cutoff raises up to 60 and T makes a call. I don't mind this call here, but we're going to have to consider what are we going to do in this hand after we bet, get raised, and then we call. And now we're out of position. We don't have the initiative. How are we getting paid if we hit this flush? What is the plan? If the turn comes a 10 of diamonds, are we just leading into this guy in the cutoff? What's that going to look like? It's going to look like we have a flush. In my opinion, it's going to look exactly like what it is. So it's going to be hard to get paid off, and it's going to be hard to control the size of the pot because we're out of position, we don't have the initiative, and the raiser probably expects us to check to him. So all in all, I think this goofy bet on the flop just leads into more troubles later on. So that's why I would prefer a check. Once again, we're back to the check. But anyways, I definitely don't mind the call, but I would probably be leading if we turn to flush. I'm not going to let this guy check back, and it's going to look pretty obvious. So that's why I don't really like this line. Anyways, when we go to the turn and it's a 3, pairing the board, and we don't make our flush, I definitely agree with the check fold here. I'm probably just going to be done with this hand. That's my official input on the hand. I definitely like to hear your comments, as I said before. So let's get into the next hand. We're going to refer to this guy as S. And S is on the button, has a $550 stack, and gets dealt ace 6 offsuit. And by the time the action reaches us, there's 4 limpers, and S decides to raise it up to $15. And the action folds to the big blind, who is playing about $325 to start the hand. And he 3-bets to 35 and folds around to S, and S makes the call for 35. And we're going off to the flop, heads up. And the flop comes ace 7-2 rainbow. The big blind checks, and S checks back, so we're going off to the turn, heads up, and the turn is an offsuit deuce, and the big blind places a bet for $50. S makes the call for 50, and he said in his notes that after he made the call, the big blind looked really nervous and he was shaking a little bit. So that being said, we're off to the river, heads up, and the river comes a jack of clubs, and as soon as the guy in the big blind recognizes what the river is, he snap moves in for approximately $240. S notes in his comments that leading up to this, they were at a shorthand table some short time ago where they were 5-handed, and he said that this guy in the big blind had been all in a bunch of times in the last hour or two. and he kind of labeled him as a maniac, and he decided to make the call. And the big blind turned over ace-10 offsuit, and S turns over his hand, and they're going to chop it up here. So after S turned over the hand, he mentioned that the big blind said that after S called on the turn, he thought he was losing, and he jammed the river because he wanted to try to make S fold. It's interesting to hear our opponent's thoughts from the big blind there. So anyways, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this hand. So pause the video if you have to, and if you think we could have done anything differently in this hand, post it in the comments below. And now I'm going to give you my opinion on this hand. Okay, first off, when there's 4 limpers into the pot and we look down at ace-6 offsuit, if I was going to raise, I think I would raise larger than $15, probably 20, 25 bucks. And we're looking to get folds, but honestly, I probably lean toward a fold because with so many limpers in this pot, I just don't think that we're going to get this through. You know, ace-6 offsuit is not going to flop well. So honestly, I just lean toward a fold, but if I was going to raise, I'd raise it bigger than 15. But I just don't expect it to work, and we're not going to flop any strong hands hardly ever with this. That being said, when the big blind 3-bets to 35 and S makes the call, I would never make this call here. I think this is just, for lack of a better term, I think this is just lighting money on fire. Like, we will be in position, but it's worth noting that, you know, 1-2 players don't 3-bet near often enough to make this profitable, and I would expect this guy in the big blind to have a better hand than S does almost all the time. He did make the call, so we're going to proceed with the analysis as played. When the flop comes out ace-7-2 rainbow and the big blind checks, I agree with S's decision to check back. If this guy in the big blind has like 10s, jacks, queens, kings, we can probably get at least a street of value out of him. So I definitely like the check back. You know, our opponent's not really going to know what we have. He probably might even take us off an ace when we check back. So that being said, we can go to the turn, and the big blind bets 50, and S makes the call. Totally standard. I'm not really sure what to make of this. You know, guys shaking and being a little nervous after we make the call, but generally when people are shaky, I've never really seen somebody shaking when it's just a stone bluff, but it's pretty unclear, you know, what this actually means. So I just wouldn't really put much weight into it unless we had, you know, some kind of information to back it up on what this tell actually means. So the river coming off a jack of clubs and the guy just snap moving in for 240. This is the kind of scenario we're going to get ourselves into when we call a 3-bet with ace-6. This is a tough decision. This is for a lot of money. And the way it looks, like we're calling to chop or we're calling to lose. And I guess like, what, maybe 5% of the time the guy just went crazy with pocket kings or something, but it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I think, you know, 1-2 players in general are scared to put money in the pot, and I just don't think we're going to be good here often enough to warrant a call. So I would not call on this river. I don't care what the guy has this time, but I would never make this call. I would just cut my losses and fold. But, you know, S does make the call, and the guy turns over ace-10, and we're fortunate to chop this hand with him. And I was, you know, kind of interested in what big blind had to say. He said he thought he was losing when S called the turn, and he shoved the river because he was trying to make S fold. And I think this really, really just highlights the flawed thought process that people at 1-2 and 1-3 and no limit hold'em have. You know, this guy is trying to turn ace-10 into a bluff and just jamming $240 on this river when in reality, like, he's never folding out a better hand. But that's what the guy said. Like, either he's messing with S and he's joking, or like he's honestly trying to fold out a better hand by jamming. So he's trying to represent like jacks full or a deuce or something somehow. It just doesn't make any sense at all that anyone would think like that, but it's whatever. I definitely would fold the river. So to be quite honest, you know, I don't want to seem very negative, but I think this whole hand is pretty spewy. I think the key points that we can take away from this is if we're going to cut a raise over 4 limpers, I'd definitely like to have a better hand than this. And if I was going to raise, I'd raise larger to maximize fold equity. I would not call the 3-bet before the flop. This auto fold right here, it's just not the right hand. We're going to be dominated so often by like pairs, you know, like 10s, jacks, queens, kings. We're going to be dominated by better ace hands. There's just no universe I would ever call this 3-bet. So that's my official thoughts on this hand. I'd love to hear yours. If you have some, post them in the comments. So as I said before, I do offer coaching for 1-2 and 1-3 players that are struggling. Take a look at my website, detroitpoker.net, or drop me an email at livepokerplayer8@gmail.com. If you like the content here, you should definitely subscribe and ring the bell, and you'll get notified when I upload new videos. Don't forget to comment, share this video with your friends. I'll see you in the next video. So take it easy. Have a good one.